218 BC. The Roman Republic controls the Mediterranean. Its navy rules the seas. Its legions are unbeaten in open battle. To the Roman Senate, victory over Carthage is inevitable. But there's one name that makes them nervous: Hannibal Barca. This isn't just another general. This is the man who will turn Italy into a graveyard for Roman legions, who will haunt the Republic for 16 years, who will prove that invincibility is a myth. Today, we're dissecting the most daring gamble in military history, a man who looked at the impossible and decided it was the only way to win. Rome believes it cannot be invaded. Their fleets control the sea. Their legions guard the land routes. To strike at Rome, Hannibal must do what no army has ever done: cross the Alps, with 90,000 men, with elephants, with siege equipment, in autumn, with winter coming. He knows half his men will die in the mountains. He crosses anyway. Before we see the blood spilled on Italian soil, we have to understand the scale of the wall he chose to climb. Spring 218 BC. Hannibal begins his march. 90,000 infantry, 12,000 cavalry, 37 war elephants. This is not just an army, it is a multi-ethnic coalition. Iberians who fight for pay and plunder, Numidians whose cavalry are the finest in the world, Libyans in Carthaginian service, Gauls who hate Rome. They speak different languages, worship different gods, but they follow Hannibal. They are about to cross 2 mountain ranges and fight the greatest power in the Mediterranean. Most of them will not survive. The Pyrenees are the first test. A mountain range separating Spain from Gaul, home to hostile tribes who see Hannibal's army as invaders or opportunity, depending on their mood. Hannibal fights through them, sometimes with gold, sometimes with swords. He leaves garrisons to secure his supply lines. He sends 11,000 Spanish troops home, men whose loyalty he doubts, men he cannot afford to have desert in hostile territory. The army that emerges from the Pyrenees is smaller but harder. In southern Gaul, Hannibal reaches the Rhone River. Roman armies are marching from Italy to intercept him. Hannibal must cross the Rhone before they arrive. The river is wide, swift, and the Gallic tribes on the far bank are hostile. Hannibal's engineers build rafts and boats. The cavalry crosses upstream, circles behind the hostile Gauls, attacks them from the rear while the main army crosses. It is brilliant improvisation. It also costs him 5 days. 5 days Rome is using to position armies between him and Italy. The elephants are the hardest to move. These are North African elephants, smaller than the Indian variety, but still massive, still terrifying to armies that have never seen them. They hate water. Hannibal's men build rafts large enough to support their weight, disguise them with earth so the elephants think they are walking on solid ground. Some elephants panic anyway, capsize their rafts, swim to the far shore in terror. One handler drowns trying to control his charge. The elephants survive. They always survive. They are Hannibal's terror weapons, his answer to Roman infantry dominance. He cannot afford to lose them. A Roman army under Publius Cornelius Scipio arrives at the Rhone 3 days after Hannibal crosses. Scipio is the father of the man who will eventually defeat Hannibal, but that is 16 years away. Right now, Scipio looks at the abandoned Carthaginian camps and realizes what Hannibal is attempting. No rational commander would try to cross the Alps with an army this size. Therefore, Hannibal is either mad or brilliant. Scipio sends cavalry to pursue him, but the main Roman army turns back toward Italy. They will meet Hannibal there, on the other side of the Alps, if he survives them. Hannibal addresses his army before they enter the Alps. He knows what is coming. So do they. Many of these men are from Mediterranean climates, have never seen snow, never experienced true cold. Hannibal tells them what awaits them in Italy: rich Roman lands to plunder, cities to liberate from Roman control, glory and wealth beyond measure. What he does not tell them, he expects to lose half the army crossing these mountains. The crossing is not a military operation. It is a calculated sacrifice to achieve what cannot be achieved any other way. The Alps in autumn. Snow already covers the high passes. The air is thin. The trails are not trails, they are animal paths, rock slides, frozen streams. Hannibal's guides are alpine Gauls who know some of the routes, but not all of them. They are leading an army of 90,000 men and 37 elephants through terrain designed to kill. The first days are manageable hard climbing, but nothing the army cannot handle. Then the local tribes begin attacking. Alpine tribes attack where the army is most vulnerable: narrow defiles, steep climbs, places where the column cannot maneuver. They roll boulders down onto the Carthaginians from above. They attack the rear of the column, steal supplies, fade back into the mountains before Hannibal's soldiers can respond. The Carthaginians cannot pursue the terrain, won't allow it. Every ambush costs men, animals, equipment. Every loss makes the army weaker for what comes next. Hannibal captures an Alpine village, executes the elders who authorized the attacks, sends the message that cooperation is rewarded and resistance is death. The attacks decrease, but as the army climbs higher into regions where no large force has ever traveled, the altitude itself becomes the enemy. Men gasp for breath in the thin air. Some collapse, unable to stand. Then the snow begins, first as flurries, then steady fall, then blizzards. Men from North Africa and Spain stare at this white substance they have never seen. Their wet clothes freeze at night, fingers and toes blacken with frostbite. Still they climb. Men begin to desert. In the night, they slip away from the column, try to make their way back down the mountains. Most die attempting it. The cold takes them, or they fall from cliffs in the darkness, or the Alpine tribes kill them. A few might make it back to the Rhone Valley. Hannibal does not try to stop them. He cannot spare men to chase deserters. Every soldier he has must focus on surviving the next mile. The worst comes at the high passes. Here the old snow has compacted into ice under new snowfall. The surface looks solid, but beneath is ice, slick as glass. Men in sandals and light boots slip and fall. Horses slide, panic, roll down slopes, taking their riders with them. Supply wagons cannot be controlled on the ice. They slide sideways, crash, spill their contents into ravines. The elephants are worst of all. Their flat feet cannot grip ice. They slip, fall, cannot get up. Handlers try to help them, die trying when the elephant's thrashing crushes them. Some elephants slide over cliff edges, their screams echoing in the mountain silence. Hannibal's engineers try to make the ice passable. They pour dirt and sand over it, but they are running out of dirt, and sand freezes into ice as hard as what is already there. They build fires to melt the ice, but the fires take hours to have any effect, and the army does not have hours. Men are dying of exposure while they wait. Finally, Hannibal makes the brutal decision: abandon anything that cannot cross the ice. Leave the supply wagons, leave the wounded who cannot walk, leave the elephants that have fallen, move light, move fast, or die here. A Numidian cavalryman named Cartalo keeps account. Every night, he marks the day on his sword handle with his knife. 15 days since they entered the Alps. 15 days of climbing, freezing, dying. He started with 12 horses. He has 3 now. His brother died 4 days ago, froze to death in the night despite Cartalo holding him. Cartalo himself has lost 2 toes to frostbite. He can barely walk. But he is cavalry, and cavalry do not abandon their horses while the horses live. So he walks, leading his remaining mounts, 1 foot in front of the other, because that is all there is to do. Day 16, the summit, the highest point of the crossing. Hannibal calls a halt, lets his men rest, shows them what they have won. From here, they can see Italy, the Po Valley far below, green and warm and rich, the promised land, the place where all this suffering will be justified if they win. Some men weep at the sight. Others simply stare, too exhausted to feel anything. The worst is behind them. The descent will still kill hundreds, but the worst is behind them. Hannibal allows himself to believe, for one moment, that this insane gamble might actually work. Hannibal emerges from the Alps with 38,000 men. He has lost more than half his army. He has lost over half his cavalry. He has 12 elephants left from the original 37. The survivors are frostbitten, exhausted, traumatized. By any reasonable measure, the crossing has destroyed his army. But he is in Italy. That was the point. Rome thought he would never arrive. The fact that he is here with any army at all is already a strategic victory. Now he must turn strategic possibility into tactical reality. The Gauls of northern Italy hate Rome. They have been fighting Roman expansion for generations. Hannibal offers them what they want, a chance to throw Rome out of the Po Valley. Gallic warriors join his army, young men eager for revenge, tribal contingents bringing their own leaders, their own tactics. Within weeks, Hannibal has rebuilt his army to 40,000 men. He has not replaced his lost cavalry or elephants, but he has numbers again. December 218 BC. The Battle of Trebia. A Roman army under Tiberius Sempronius meets Hannibal in a winter snowstorm. Hannibal uses the terrain brilliantly, draws the Romans across an icy river, exhausts them with skirmishing, then springs an ambush with cavalry hidden in the riverbanks. The Roman army breaks. 15,000 Romans die in the snow and ice. Hannibal loses fewer than 5,000. It is his first major victory on Italian soil. It proves he can beat Roman legions in open battle. It sends a message to every Roman ally in Italy: Rome can be defeated. Hannibal winters in the Po Valley. He rests his men. He rebuilds his army with more Gallic allies. He develops an eye infection that will eventually cost him sight in one eye, the price of spending weeks in frozen alpine passes. Rome, meanwhile, panics. The Senate dismisses Sempronius's defeat as bad luck and incompetence. They raise new armies. They appoint new consuls. They remain confident that Roman military superiority will prevail. They have never lost a war on Italian soil, and they will not start now. June 217 BC. Lake Trasimene. Hannibal ambushes a Roman army in the morning fog. 15,000 Romans die, including the consul Gaius Flaminius, in less than 3 hours. It is the largest ambush in military history. An entire Roman army destroyed because they followed Hannibal into a killing ground without scouting ahead. The tactical brilliance is undeniable, but the strategic result is what matters. 2 major Roman armies destroyed in 6 months. Rome's Italian allies begin to waver. Rome appoints Fabius Maximus as dictator. Fabius understands what others do not. Rome cannot beat Hannibal in open battle. His strategy is simple: shadow Hannibal, prevent him from besieging Roman cities, avoid major engagements, wait for time and attrition to do what Roman swords cannot. It is a strategy born of respect for Hannibal's abilities. It is also deeply unpopular. Romans want revenge for Trasimene. They want their armies to attack, to destroy this invader. Fabius knows they will get their chance, and he fears what will happen when they do. August 216 BC. Cannae, the decisive battle. Rome raises the largest army in its history, 80,000 infantry, 6,000 cavalry. 2 consuls, Varro and Paulus, share command. The entire military might of the Republic concentrates to destroy Hannibal once and for all. Hannibal has 50,000 men, 10,000 cavalry. The odds favor Rome. The terrain favors Rome. Open plains where Roman infantry superiority should dominate. Hannibal is outnumbered and outmatched. By every conventional measure, he should lose. Hannibal forms his infantry in a crescent, the center slightly forward, the wings held back. As the Romans attack, the Carthaginian center gives ground slowly, fighting, but retreating. The Roman infantry pushes forward, sensing victory. They compress their formation, pack tighter to maintain pressure on the retreating Carthaginians, exactly as Hannibal planned. At the perfect moment, Hannibal's cavalry, which has routed the Roman cavalry on both flanks, circles behind the Roman army. The Carthaginian wings advance. The Romans are surrounded, 80,000 men packed so tightly they cannot raise their weapons. The killing lasts all day. Romans cannot retreat, there is nowhere to go. They cannot fight effectively, they are too compressed. The Carthaginians methodically slaughter them from the outside in. Consul Paulus dies fighting in the ranks. Consul Varro escapes. 50,000 Romans die at Cannae. Hannibal loses 6,000. It is the worst defeat in Roman history. It will be studied by military commanders for the next 2,000 years as the perfect tactical victory. After Cannae, several major Italian cities defect to Hannibal. Capua, the second largest city in Italy, opens its gates to him. Syracuse in Sicily allies with Carthage. The kingdom of Macedon signs a treaty against Rome. Hannibal's strategy is working. He is fracturing Rome's alliance system, proving that Rome can be beaten, offering subject peoples an alternative. This is what the Alpine crossing was for. This is the payoff he gambled everything to achieve. Rome should negotiate. Rome should make peace on Carthaginian terms, but Rome does not negotiate. Rome's response to Cannae defies all historical precedent. Any other ancient state, after losing 50,000 men in a single afternoon, would sue for peace. Rome refuses. The Senate declares national mourning is limited to 30 days. Anything longer might damage morale. They free 25,000 slaves and arm them. They raise new legions from boys as young as 16. They tell the surviving consul Varro, "Rome thanks you for not despairing of the Republic." They will not negotiate with Hannibal. They will not make peace. They will fight until one side or the other is destroyed. Hannibal's officers urge him to march on Rome immediately. With the city defenseless and the Roman army destroyed, they could besiege the capital. But Hannibal refuses. He knows his limitations. He has no siege equipment. It was abandoned in the Alps. He has no reinforcements. Carthage has sent him nothing. He cannot besiege Rome without the ability to starve it or break its walls. His strategy was never to conquer Rome directly. It was to break Rome's alliance system, force Rome to negotiate. But Rome will not negotiate. This is the variable Hannibal could not control: Roman political will. He executed his strategy perfectly. He crossed the impossible mountains. He destroyed 3 Roman armies. He won the most tactically perfect battle in military history. And none of it matters because Rome simply refuses to acknowledge defeat. They take the casualties, conscript more soldiers, and continue fighting. Hannibal has won every battle he needed to win. But he cannot win the war, because the war is not decided by battles alone. The years grind on. Hannibal marches through Italy, winning tactical victories that accomplish nothing strategic. Rome shadows him, avoids major battles, waits him out. Hannibal cannot force them to fight on his terms. His Gallic allies begin to leave. They joined for plunder and quick victory, not a prolonged war of attrition. His Italian allies, seeing Rome refuses to break, begin to recalculate their odds. 207 BC. Hannibal's brother Hasdrubal crosses the Alps with a relief army, repeating Hannibal's impossible feat. If Hasdrubal can join with Hannibal, combining their forces, they might have the strength to finally break Rome. It is Hannibal's last real chance. But Rome intercepts Hasdrubal at the Metaurus River. A Roman army under the consul Livius crushes the relief force. Hasdrubal dies fighting. The Romans cut off his head, ride south, and throw it into Hannibal's camp. That is how Hannibal learns his brother is dead. That is how he learns the war is lost. Hannibal remains in Italy for 6 more years, not because he has hope of victory, but because abandoning Italy means admitting defeat. He fights on, a ghost army led by a one-eyed general, waiting for Carthage to send support that never comes. Rome, meanwhile, learns from Hannibal's tactics, adopts his methods, becomes the military power that will eventually conquer the entire Mediterranean world. 203 BC. A Roman army under Scipio, son of the consul Hannibal faced at the Rhone, invades North Africa. Carthage finally panics. They recall Hannibal from Italy to defend the homeland. After 16 years in Italy, after winning every major battle he fought, Hannibal sails for Africa knowing he has lost the war. The crossing of the Alps, the victories at Trebia and Trasimene and Cannae, all of it futile against an enemy that simply refused to break. 202 BC. Zama, the final battle. Hannibal faces Scipio on the plains outside Carthage. Scipio has studied Hannibal's tactics for 16 years. He knows how Hannibal fights. At Zama, Scipio uses Hannibal's own methods against him, uses superior cavalry, envelops the Carthaginian wings, defeats Hannibal with Hannibal's own playbook. The student has surpassed the master. Carthage sues for peace. The Second Punic War is over. Rome has won. The peace terms are crushing. Carthage must disarm, pay massive indemnities, surrender its territories, become a client state of Rome. Hannibal, now a Carthaginian magistrate, tries to rebuild his city economically and politically. But Rome never forgives. 20 years after Zama, Rome demands Carthage hand over Hannibal to face trial. Rather than surrender, Hannibal flees to the east, becomes a military advisor to eastern kings still resisting Rome. 183 BC. Hannibal is 64 years old, living in exile in Bithynia, on the edge of the Roman world. Roman agents finally corner him in a small house by the sea. Hannibal has prepared for this moment for years. He takes poison he has carried with him since leaving Carthage, knowing that eventually Rome would come for him. As he dies, he says, "Let us relieve the Romans of their anxiety. They cannot wait for an old man to die." He dies in exile, far from Carthage, never having returned to the city he spent his life trying to save. 50 years after Hannibal's death, Rome finally destroys Carthage completely. In the Third Punic War, Roman legions burn the city for 17 days. They kill or enslave the entire population. They plow the ruins with salt so nothing will ever grow there again. Carthage, the city that gave Rome its greatest challenge, is erased from the earth. Hannibal's nightmare, the thing he crossed the Alps to prevent, comes true. But it comes too late for him to see. What did Hannibal accomplish? For 16 years, he humiliated Rome, proving that the Republic could be beaten in battle. He killed over 100,000 Roman soldiers across multiple campaigns. He forced Rome to adapt, to change, to become a more flexible and dangerous military power. In that sense, he made Rome stronger. His crossing of the Alps became legendary. Every subsequent general who attempted something impossible measured themselves against Hannibal. His tactics at Cannae are still taught at military academies today. He achieved battlefield excellence that has rarely been matched in human history. But he lost. Not because his strategy was wrong, it was the only strategy that could have worked. Not because his execution was flawed, his tactical genius was nearly perfect. He lost because victory required variables beyond his control, Carthage sending meaningful reinforcements, which they never did. Rome's Italian allies breaking away en masse after Cannae, which they did not. Rome negotiating after suffering catastrophic defeats, which Rome refused to do. Hannibal did everything a general could do. It was not enough. The modern Alps. Hannibal route is a hiking trail that roughly follows the path historians believe Hannibal took. Every year, people walk sections of it, trying to understand what it meant to cross these mountains with an army. They see the narrow passes, the steep climbs, the places where snow still lies in midsummer. They imagine elephants navigating trails where modern hikers struggle. The landscape has not changed much in 2,000 years. It remains beautiful, hostile, and utterly indifferent to human ambition. In the end, Hannibal's tragedy is not that he failed. Most great enterprises fail. His tragedy is that he succeeded in everything he attempted and still lost. He identified the only strategic path that offered victory. He paid the terrible price to walk that path. He executed his strategy with near-perfect tactical brilliance. And he discovered that near-perfect is not the same as sufficient, that doing everything right does not guarantee success when the outcome depends on things you cannot control. History remembers Hannibal as one of the greatest military commanders who ever lived. His name stands with Alexander and Caesar and Napoleon. Military academies study his tactics. Historians debate his decisions. His crossing of the Alps remains one of the most audacious military maneuvers ever attempted. He achieved immortality. But immortality is not the same as victory, and victory was what he crossed the Alps to find. The Numidian cavalryman Cartalo, the soldier who counted days on his sword handle, who lost his brother in the snow, survived the war. He returned to North Africa, married, lived to old age. He never spoke about the crossing except to say, "We thought we were following a genius to glory. We were following a man betting everything on one impossible chance." The difference only became clear when we had already paid the price. Hannibal's final words, as he prepared to take poison rather than surrender to Rome, were not about victory or defeat. They were about dignity. Let us relieve the Romans of their anxiety. Even in death, he denied them the satisfaction of victory over him personally. They could defeat his army, destroy his city, kill his people, but they could not take from him the choice of how to die. In that final defiance, he remained who he had always been, a man who would rather pay any price than accept the terms offered by reality.